little bit of.
Yeah, no, I should probably get some too. If you have to use the restroom now, is the time. If you have to.
Well, I feel like I don't have to, but in the middle of it.
Have to in the middle of it. Like, no big deal. Not the end of the world.
So does your friend rent out this space?
Yeah, he does.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, he rents it out. It's his kind of. He runs like a wholesale like real estate out of here, which is really really cool. I don't really know much of it, but we met. Actually, I was producing another podcast with two real estate people, and he was the first guest on their podcast. And he was like, "I have a studio, I have a couple of things, but I'm also looking for a producer." I was like, "Yo, I kind of do that. It'll be dope if like you can kind of show me kind of what you have." He brought me here. He showed me the switcher, which I never messed with. I used to edit things manually.
Right.
Only manually. So this was a freaking, a godsend.
Game changer?
Like,
Yeah.
Because it's literally like, once we're done here, that's it. I don't have to worry about anything else. It's done. I'll literally airdrop it to you, and you walk away with the podcast. It's a good product offering, too.
Right.
I've realized, too.
Cool. I'll have to look into that and maybe invest into something. Just because the editing portion of things, it usually takes longer and you have to nitpick. When if you're able to control it through the conversation, you're able to just make it easier.
It's hard to do it while talking. So this is my second time doing it. I did it live one time because I do mobile podcasting. So I go to events and I'll pop up the table real nice, 2 mics, soundboard, this switcher here. And I did one the other week. And trying to talk to the people, I was like, oh my gosh, like I can't even lock in the conversation, so it's hard. But here I have it where it's at least I can like rest my arm, and then I can like look here,
kind of go in and out,
So it's like a little bit easier. But I feel like after a little bit, I'll be able to like
control it.
Just
yeah,
like,
your brain will just be kind of
I know what camera it is. You're here, I'm here.
Yeah.
But yeah, man. So
you just got to train the brain.
It's like learning an instrument. I've always wanted to learn how to play the piano. I feel like this is kind of like.
And that's what I was thinking. Sometimes because I'm a drummer.
Oh, okay.
And one of those things that people are like, how do you do all this and then all this with your feet and all that? It's like you just got to train your brain and you got to practice and then you get better at it. And then once you're like good, then you just keep learning and keep getting better.
Yeah, absolutely. So we met because you follow me on Instagram. I saw your Instagram. I was like, oh my gosh, it's another hobby. And that's kind of something that we kind of talked about here was I posted something. It was about the first time that someone spelled my name like crazy wrong. And it was Hobar. They spelled it Hobhar. And I think you resonated with that pretty legit because your name is also Javier.
Yeah.
So what's the worst you've ever gotten?
It's funny because I've been exposed to different companies that I've worked for. I was in the cell phone business for a really long time, right? So people always would read it, but they would always just say it wrong. They'll say Javier. When they would come back, they would come asking for me. But the worst one that I always remember and I always talk about is I used to work in Canapolis at a Sprint store back then. And someone came in asking for habanero. And I was like, dude, there's no way that you could just mess it up. It's like a choice. You chose to just butcher it completely. And it's kind of funny. And now I've gone my life with remembering that. So I think that's the worst one. But obviously Javar is all.
I've had like a couple friends been like Java, just like Java chip. I'm like, yeah, that's funny. And then obviously we got Hobar come through, and then Javi. That's the
Javi. Javi's the most common one because I feel people try to read it, and then that's when they go Javi. We see the J, but it's just normal.
I think I remember through elementary school, I always told people, yes, it's the J. You're absolutely right. But in Spanish, it's
right.
It's always and like my core group of friends, like they got it. But like once I started meeting brand new people, it was like Javi. And I was like, oh my gosh, dude. Like, and then I got Hobar, which is the one I always go to because I'm just like, there's no way. Like that was on purpose too. And I actually posted something on LinkedIn. It was that same clip that I posted on Instagram. And I saw that the Starbucks CEO actually is like focusing on posting like or putting out the Sharpie print on the actual cups. And that was like the thing they did back in like 2010 or whatever. But now he's like, we got to do it because it's going to make people's day feel, awesome. And I'm like, well, when you spell my name wrong.
Yeah, you got to do it right,
like,
at least.
I'm like, dog. But yeah, dude. So kind of, this is our first time.
Yeah.
Like legit, and already like I feel like the vibe is pretty cool. I noticed that you have a car Instagram as well.
Yeah.
So you're a car guy.
I am.
Yeah. Okay.
I love cars.
Yeah. Are you more mechanic, speed? Like where are we kind of?
So I fall more into the love for the vehicle, the way they look, the artistry behind car culture.
Yeah.
Because even though I do things to modify the cars and stuff like that, I am not a super modifier. I think now there's a term for it.
Is there?
When you get a car and you modify it slightly, but still keeps kind of like its
stock, like keeping
stock status, it's called OEM plus.
Is that what
right?
It is?
Yeah. So that now there's a term for it, just because there's certain cars that are just so beautiful as they are stock that just little mods can differentiate from others without going overboard, Fast and Furious style, you know?
Yeah.
So as I've gotten older, that's kind of what I've gone for. So my Instagram page, I probably started it up like 2 months ago.
Oh wow! Right.
Yeah. So it's recent, just because I'm trying to get more involved with the car culture here in Charlotte, and just going to events, networking, meeting people, and just enjoying having the conversation about cars.
Yeah.
And there's so many good cars here in Charlotte, and so many like dope owners that have $1 million cars, and you can have conversations just about anything. And it just keeps fresh. So I think that's an avenue that I've started to kind of ground myself into in the last few months with the vehicles, because I mean I already have them, so might as well try to create community behind it.
Yeah,
so
absolutely. And you have, so I saw you got a Supra and you got a Porsche.
Yeah.
What year is your Porsche?
2002.
Oh, that's the year I was born.
Really?
Yeah. How old are you?
I'm 36.
36. Okay, so I think my brother's 32. Hector, if you're watching,
okay, wow.
My bad, bro.
I'm older than your brother.
Yeah, something like that. But it's funny because I saw the Porsche. I remember having a Hot Wheel. It might be, correct me if I don't know, but it might be that same version of your Porsche. That's how I fell in love with Porsches. I was like, that's the first initial car. So like the dream is, the Porsche 911 GT3 RS, the classic car. But I got a Hot Wheel of it, and it was like that Carolina blue, and I'm a Panthers fan, so I'm like, yes, this is what I want.
Yeah.
And I got connected with a photographer. His name is Alex, back in Virginia. That's where I'm from. He shot one of those cars, and I was like, bro, like, how did you get in front of this car? But I own a 2002 Mustang GT. So my dad has been a Mustang guy. He has a 1987 Mustang, Fox body,
nice,
legit. Always was working on it, always doing something. And I'm more on the mechanic side of things. So I appreciate kind of like what you were saying, like the artistry and stuff. But there's something about turning a wrench, bro. Like it's and it's probably more like spending time with my dad was probably like the biggest thing, and working on it. So I had a 1996 Corolla. This is high school, right? Beater car, stick shift, worst looking car. Best car I ever had, we'll say.
Yeah.
Gas was great. AC was cold. Heat was warm. That's all you needed, right?
Reliable.
Reliable as hell. And finally, like, COVID happened. Everything was crazy. And my dad was in roofing. He pulls up to this house, and there's a Mustang for sale, 2002, right? He calls me and he's like, yo, there's a Mustang. Come check it out. Like, it's for sale. I know you've been saving up. And I'm like, I don't need it, but it'll be really cool. So I pull up. Walk up, and I'm like, all right, it's cool. Don't really need it. And the guy's like, you want to turn it on? I was like, yeah, let's turn it on. Dude, when he turned on that car, bro, gosh, it was over. It was like love at first. I was like, let's do it. Let's do it. And then, like, kind of like what you were saying, just like the mods to that car, I didn't do too much, but I spent all my stimmies on it. All the stimulus checks came in, and it was like we switched out the H pipe, put an X pipe in there. The MagnaFlow system was already in the back exhaust, so it complemented the X pipe really good. But it needed new calipers, it needed new rotors, it needed brakes, shock absorbers. The intake manifold was cracked. Like I could see why he was selling it. But that part of working with my dad, learning the vehicle, understanding the ins and outs of it, that's why I fell in love. But I've always been into cars. Like Fast and Furious was like, shit, bro. Like I loved it. That first scene with the Mitsubishi Eclipse pulls up and it's like boom. So that's cool. But you see, like I love it, bro. I could talk about cars all day.
See, and the thing is, I think Fast and Furious kind of shaped our generations, right?
Oh,
Just
yeah.
because of how many movies they put out,
bro. No.
and on top of that is like they've evolved so much from working on Hondas and Jettas and all these things to super and hypercars and all these things to where you're just kind of like envision yourself going through that same kind of journey, right? Yeah. Hopefully one day, you know, with hard work and stuff, we can get to those levels. We own McLarens, Lamborghinis, and all that stuff. So my Porsche, I feel like I got into a sort of obsession in the last 2 to 3 years because I've had the Supra that long, but I wanted something classic. I wanted something that I was able to kind of enjoy on the weekends, be able to put the windows down and just cruise. And because I've done a few mods to the Supra, and it's already so fast and it's so modern that I was like, no, now I want something that's kind of like low. And the model of Porsche that I have is so hated because of the headlights.
What?
Yeah, it's a huge thing.
They stick out a little bit, or
well. The thing is, Porsches, they all have round headlights, right? Especially if it's a 911.
Yeah.
But from 1996, when the 996, which is the model I have, when the 996 came out, they reshaped that circle. And people say because of the way it's shaped, I'm trying to think. It's the egg.
It's like more oval,
the cracked egged headlight. Do you ever put like pictures and stuff like that on your video? Okay, so look it up, production. If you can look it up, So it looks like an egg, like a cracked egg on a headlight. So instead of being round, it kind of goes like this, and then it's got the amber marker for like your externals right at the bottom. So then when it like lights up, it just looks orange with like a side egg. And then in 2002, they upgraded it and made it look less of an egg thing. But people still hated it. So in 2006, they went to the 997 model, and they went completely round and haven't changed since then.
Damn.
So a lot of Porsche enthusiasts and like fanatics have hated those generations, and that's kind of the thing that's turned me on about this generation that made me want one. So it's weird because even the new Supra is also kind of hated.
You know what? That's such a funny point because I had mixed feelings when it first came out too. Because like, you have the 97 Supra that everyone fell in love with. Fast and Furious, put it on the map, of course. As a kid, I thought that car was fake. I didn't even realize. I was so young when I saw that movie that when that orange Supra was put together, I'm like, that's a fake car.
Right.
And I saw it in real life. I was like, how is that even a thing? And I'm like, then they stopped making it. Then the new one came out. I'm like, it's not the worst car in the world. It doesn't, it grew on me after I saw it in person. Like every year when the new Mustang come out, like I'm like, okay, let's see it. Like the new ones, like the lights on the back, I can't stand it, bro. It's just they're so small and it's like indented. It looks like a V almost. Like, bro, no. I think the 2015 model, the shift from 2014 to 15 was
those were good.
Bro. Chef's kiss with that. But it's funny how like different people see the cars, and that's why I always like talking. Like people are like, I don't like Mustangs because of the thing with Mustangs is that like they run in the crowds. Like that's the stigma with the Mustang. And so like I got my Mustang.
They're crowd killers.
Exactly. I'm like, oh my gosh, like no, yes, it happens for sure. But more so, the car culture is such an interesting world. I feel like, and it ties into a lot of things. Kind of. Social media is kind of taking like a big spiel on it, and a lot of people are popularizing. There's big meets. A buddy of mine, RJ, back home, he does like meets and things.
Yeah,
he runs I forget, Slow Movement is the name of his company. Does like different merch and stuff like that's really sick. But we went to one of these car meets, and I'm just like, this is nuts. Right. Like I've gone to like the structured car meets at the convention centers and advertisers and stuff like that. But there's something about just like your
like the street scene.
Yeah, that stuff is dope, bro.
Yeah, man. So the car culture here in Charlotte, it's been going on for a long time, but I feel like it's shifted to two different types of crowds. There's the takeover crowd.
Yeah.
that likes to be reckless, and then there's the, hey, we just want to kind of chill, go talk with friends, and park our cars and admire everybody's builds.
Exactly.
So there's like a really active one, and then a chill one.
Yeah.
And once you're in with like people that are involved, they have events every week. There's different shops that they go to. There's different people that will host, like with DJs, and like do 200, 300 car events that you just get to enjoy on the weekend when the weather is nice and all these things.
Yeah.
I went to a parking garage one, which that always reminds me of like Fast and the Furious, right?
Yeah,
like if you're going up the parking garage and you're seeing all these cars, it was cold, super cold, but people still showed up. There was probably 200 cars that showed up to a parking garage here, and the view was beautiful because you could see the skyline, the Charlotte skyline from there. So that just makes you want to continue being involved with the community. So it's really cool.
Yeah, that's
I don't
sick.
do takeovers again.
I can't do that.
either because I'm older, and I just don't want to be part of that. The liability is too high, but I do like going to car events and being able to conversate with people.
Dude, I haven't been to one in a while, and like I said, I'm more on the mechanic side, kind of solo. So like I can appreciate the meets and everyone's builds and stuff like that, but it's funny because it's like it's so stressful sometimes when you're under the car, right? And like growing up, I was never strong enough to pull the bolts off, so I was just sit there with my dad and be like, oh my god, what am I doing here?
You remember the struggle?
Oh my god, dude! But we talked about it last time we worked on the car, and because what we did was we changed the oil, and my AC compressor went out, and I hadn't had it fixed like since the summer, and it was like clogged up with like a bunch of crap in there, and it was really dangerous. Like it was about to come off, so it wasn't that hard. It was just 3 bolts, take it out, swap it, put it back in. That's it. But when I was under there, this was the first time he kind of like let me like take over and manage the job, and he kind of just monitored. And I was strong enough to finally take off the bolts. You know, I could see the thing. But the years of just being under the car with my dad, all those problem-solving skills that I noticed, him worrying about this, getting the tools here, putting the knuckle here, all these different things finally just started rushing my brain. And he was like, you see why I wanted you to work with me for all this years? I'm like, yeah, like I can kind of see it. But, dude, that Mustang has gone through so much. I actually made like a Valentine's post on my personal Instagram, and like did this like phony like caption of just like, without you, like I wouldn't be here, and like we went through so many ups and downs and whatever, and then finally at the end I was like, Feliz, Valentin, mi Mustang, min Mustang, some shit like that. But it's like I posted all these pictures of like it broke down in a cookout parking lot right as I was before to order. Like the control arm came out, so I was turning and literally just went. Doof. I was like, oh, that's not good. And then like just different times in the street, I'll be driving, pushing the clutch cable snaps, so my clutch was just floppy the entire time. And I just had countless stories of that. But it's just like, it made me fall in love with the car like even more, because it was like, all right, well now I gotta fix you. And I was like, it was like a relationship, which is like it was terrible.
You have your ups and downs, but it's always there. So it's up to you to be able to control it, make it better, and be able to get it running again. And it makes it even more special that you're able to put the labor in yourself.
Right.
The only reason why I've never got into it is just because I knew there was always somebody that could do it better than me, because they were skilled, they had the time and all these things, and I just never really wanted to involve myself. I know basic things to be able to determine what
like
can be wrong with the car, or what things I want to make better, but never going into it and actually trying to fix something, because I don't want, again, the liability of breaking something then it becomes second, like it just gets worse.
Dog, dude, when we fixed the brakes on my car, I went to McDonald's to grab food for my dad and I to test it. And like, I was so scared I was going to bump into someone, that the lady that was about to, give me my food was like, you can pull up. And there's a car in front of me. And there was like probably like 6, 7, 8 feet in front of us. I'm like, I literally was like, I just put new brakes on the car. I don't want, like, I was so scared. But that pressure, like, the moment when you finish the job and you go to turn the car on is the most scariest moment ever, because you just spent 4 or 5 hours working on this thing, and you put the key in the ignition, and you're just like, oh my gosh, like, please turn on. And there's been times where it doesn't turn on, and we pulled this joke on my brother. We're working on his van, and my dad got a wrench, and he was like, "Go turn on the car," and I'm in the back, and we're like laughing. My brother turns on the car, and he goes, "Tuk, tuk, 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 tuk," and my brother comes out, he's like, "What the heck is that?" And he sees the wrench, and I'm like, "That's the pressure that comes with working on it." So like,
Right.
I tell people all the time, like, you know, you find your things, right? And that's with anything in life. And you know, I know before the show we were talking about, you know, how I kind of got into content creation and production. And like I said, like it was just a route that I saw. You know,
Correct.
I saw, you know, content itself and the quality of it was not the best. It's very focused on advertising and trying to sell people. So I fell in love with that aspect of being like, okay, well, how do you create good content? Like podcasting. Podcasting is something that I fell in love with. I'm like, you can make so much reels, clips, all these different things, but it can turn into longer form. And that's the route I took. So instead of taking the digital marketing and creating the digital marketing company first, I learned how to become a content creator first. And I think now it's at a totally different spot than it was 2.5 years ago with like the captions and the zooms, but now everyone's trying to get into it. But you've developed quite a following. You have like what, 17,000 followers?
15. It goes up and down, and you know, with the way bots and everything on social media is, I'll gain a lot of followers and then I'll drop a lot of followers. But I have a strong community that still engages with me, and that's what kind of keeps me focused.
Gotcha.
So the full amount, it goes up from 15.3 to 15.2, and then it just stays there. So
well, that's interesting because you mentioned bots. It's like, how many of those people are actually real?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So it's like, if the community, I know the community is that newer on Instagram with the community? So I know they have like the channels and stuff like that, or is it more community just through comments, or what is the definition of community in your eyes?
To me, my community is people that are engaged, that come back no matter what I post or I document, and people that engage through the stories, people that engage through the giveaways that I do.
Okay.
So that to me is a community, because I don't know if you've seen, I do some meet and greets with Charlotte FC and compare foods.
Okay, nice.
Right?
Yeah.
So the community that shows up to those events is not 15,000, but 200, 300 people show up, and that makes a huge deal. So that's the type of community that I feel like I fostered. That again, it doesn't represent the 15,000, but overall, there's a huge engaged profiles, that are there, that are excited for the content that I post, and they just follow my journey and have been there for years at this point.
How long have you been doing it?
Like 7 years.
7 years. Well, that's the thing. That's what I tell people all the time. Like, it's not an overnight thing, you know.
Right.
It's not, and that's definitely the biggest struggle that I've encountered when like trying to tell people about it. Because, you know, like I said, I got into the content creation side, and I understand the marketing. I understand how to grow a profile and stuff. Like, I'm doing it myself, and trying different things. But I keep getting pulled back to the content creation side, and I want to help people. I got to get there. But I helped a buddy of mine. His name is Ian. And he does, he's a musical artist, produces and stuff like that. And we got him on TikTok. He had a decent following in the beginning, like 1,000 followers. And then him and I started working together. We reconnected after high school. And I was like, look, post every day, at least once. And then figure out what your audience likes, and then go from there. And then after 9 months, after, you know, almost a year, he had one video go absolutely insane. And blew up. Got like 15,000 followers from it. And then we capitalized on that. He grew because he kept trying new things, and finally he started putting out a cappella cover because he can sing really good. And people are like, this is awesome. He like 4 or 5 go viral one after another, and now he's at like 62,000.
Nice.
But like, you see that, and you're like, oh, you had it right away, but no one sees the 9 months of him just posting BS. You know, like 10 views here, 14 views here, and it's just like, people don't understand that. And like, that's what you're gonna tell. Like, I'm already fired up about it, because like, I want to kind of put that message out there that it's not about just doing it to do it, is that there's strategy behind it.
Yeah, for sure. So it's something that as a creator you struggle yourself internally, right? Because you start to think, and you see all these massive influencers that have a large following, and you have to do some self-reflection. Because one thing that I always say is, I may not have 1 million followers, but the ones that do follow me, they're true and they show up,
100%.
right? And I mean, I think the phrase right now that's being used is, hey, it took you 9 years to become an overnight success.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, I've heard
So
that, yeah.
it's one of those things that, it didn't happen overnight. I've been going through failures. I've been going through different platforms to where initially I started making content about music.
Oh,
and
really?
yeah, so I played in different bands here in Charlotte growing up. My brother plays guitar, and I always wished of having a band with him and playing with him. He's older, and I would go to his concerts. I would always have a camera. I would record what was going on. Then more shows would come to Charlotte. I would go to them. I'd always have my camera, always. And I felt there was, before influencers, I felt there was a need to be able to create a platform where Latino bands would come to the U.S. and they'd get the exposure.
Nice.
Not your Shakiras, not your Pitbulls or anything like that, but more on the rock end side, more on the Latin reggae. So I felt that was my niche for a while, and it was picking up. I was able to do some really, really cool things. I would get invited to festivals in Chicago, in LA, in Miami.
Right.
I went to a festival in Mexico. I went to the Latin Grammys twice.
Nice.
I don't know if you've seen, but that's when Bad Bunny was first starting to come into the scene. I got to meet him.
Oh, nice.
Got to walk the red carpet the same time he was there and everything like that. So in the music industry, I was already following a path where even though there weren't influencers yet, I was becoming that Latino alternative influencer. But there's a flip to the story.
Of course, yeah.
Because as I was going to these award shows and these festivals, I felt like I was always chasing the artist to be able to get like a premiere. Right?
Yeah.
And then I feel like that turned me into a person that was always looking for that first shot or that news to be able to share it with my community. And then I started, the way I name it is that I started to feel like a paparazzi and not more of a content creator or someone that was enjoying what he was doing.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about that, because that's a very interesting kind of ideology with it, because it's like, I feel like the celebrity world, the music following world, like that's just the theme, that's the vibe,
Right.
Paparazzi. You take a picture of the people, blah 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 blah. That's it. Post that. What's the stick? What's the drama? That's it. What do you think is the difference between that, which is capturing the moment, and then creating the content? Is it more, because I don't know. I look at it like it's the long, like content creation itself now, I feel like it's more long. You got to play the long game here. And being a creator is that in other words, creating the content. It's not just documenting, capturing. That's why I tell people, I'm like, they see me post, they see me with the cameras, they see me with the production. They're like, oh, you're a video guy. Like, sort of. That's like, I know how to do it, but that's not me. Like,
right.
I can create it. But what I tell people now is, like, I enjoy building the business. Like, that's how I create. It just so happens I know how to do all this too, but that's the business. But to kind of bring back to the content creation side, long term is where I'm seeing it. But documenting and creating are two kind of very, and that's what it kind of sounds like you're saying, is that you're going more the documenting side.
Right. The thing is, when I was creating this platform and the content, I liked when I was able to talk about, let's say, new releases or new things that were positive that were happening with the artist, right? The difference is that I was always behind the camera and I was always showing and putting my effort into highlighting somebody else. So then that aspect of things got to me at some point when I started to see how the music industry was and how like cutthroat and how like what's the right word that I'm trying to say? It's very like Mean Girls type of stuff. You gotta be in the know to be able to do your work, which at that point I took it serious enough to travel and do all these things. And I guess I just wasn't connected as much because I was from Charlotte and we don't have like a large music industry vibe here. When I was traveling to these bigger cities, it was always very like negative.
I hear what you're saying. I mean, it's a vibe thing. It's a vibe thing for sure. And what Ian and I have kind of seen is because when he posted and he started posting these covers, people started reaching out. Not just anyone. We're talking like Universal, like a couple producers, Grammy-winning artists, and he's texting me all this, and I'm like, what the fuck? is going on here? Like, this is it. Then you go down the process of like the contracts and everything they're saying, how much they want, and he told me straight out, he was like, listen, it's pretty rough out here. Like, it's great, it's an awesome opportunity, but we got to look out for him. I was like, that is your realm. I did my job. We got you the leads, bring him in the door. That's awesome.
Correct.
But just hearing that and seeing that, and my brother, he plays music too.
Okay.
He plays in a band called True Body, and they do like alternative, like punk kind of style. It's pretty sick.
Yeah.
And they're kind of ramping up too. And my brother's kind of shared what they have gone through, and it's a pretty rough industry to be in. And I definitely don't want to be in there, because I've seen how rough and cutthroat it is.
Right.
But there's something about the marketing aspect of it that is changing. And you brought up Bad Bunny, and anyone that knows me, that's my dog.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? Like,
you're a big fan?
Well, he helped me understand Spanish more.
Oh, okay.
So, like, my parents are Puerto Rican. My dad came to the U.S. in 1983, I think, with the Navy. Didn't speak any English. Chose the job that you have to be very, very good at English. He learned English. He got very proficient at it. Obviously, my mom was learning English as well, but her English was broken. She spoke more Spanish at home. Raising us, we spoke Spanish in the house. But because I was in school all the time, I didn't really speak that much Spanish.
Right.
It was only at home. So as the years went on and I grew up, Spanish kind of became that thing that I only talked with, my grandparents,
at home,
my cousins, with my padrinos, all that. And once I kind of got to this point where I'm kind of older and out in the world and I've interacted with different people and found the language barriers and stuff like that, I get like I freeze. You know what I'm saying? Like, my brain wants to go into English, but I'm trying to speak Spanish, and you speak out in self-conscious, it goes into the whole thing, right?
Yeah.
So when what is it called? Por Siempre came out, that album was like, whoa. It's like the first album that he dropped.
Yeah.
Like, all right, cool. So there's something here. I started listening to the lyrics and then started translating them, learning the songs. So when I learned the songs, I'm like, okay, cool. If I can rap this and speak very fast and pronounce these words, like, I think I can get there. And it wasn't until Un Verano Sin Ti where it kind of clicked. Because Un Verano Sin Ti was a real Puerto Rican album.
Yep.
Like, they My Fotos was Puerto Rican, but like Un Verano Sin Ti is like, it scratched the surface a little bit of like Dominican and Puerto Rican. But yeah, no, he helped me really lock in the Spanish. And now I'm practicing it more. Like, could I drop a whole conversation? Probably. But it's like, I don't know. Like, I was talking to a friend, because I have a couple Puerto Rican friends, and they're in the same boat. It's like, I want to speak Spanish.
Yeah.
But I'm scared, too. Like, I get it. It's scary. So that's why he kind of stands out. So the music is great, and it's awesome, and, whatever. But that's the biggest thing that stands out with me.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like music, and that's why I like music so much, right?
Yeah.
Because they say music is a universal language.
100%.
And that's why I felt there was a need to be able to showcase all the good things that Latin music before this boom. And I'm telling you, that's why it was before influencers. It was a thing that was picking up.
Right.
But I got to the point where I was going to these late night parties. I was seeing crazy things that I didn't want to see.
Yeah.
And then I just didn't feel good about myself and what I was doing. And I felt that I did a disservice to my initial, goal. And then I was also doing a disservice to the city here in Charlotte, because even though I lived here, it wasn't bringing anything positive.
Right.
So then at that point, I made the switch. I created QC Javi.
Wow.
And then I went hard at showcasing Charlotte, all the beauty of it, and then everything that it's got going on, to where really that's when my following started going. I started collaborating with restaurants, businesses, being able to showcase, again, the beauty of everything that's going on here and how it's growing and how it's changed.
Yeah.
I found my path that I enjoyed, and I was able to be myself freely.
Yeah.
Because people really enjoyed who I was or who I am as a creator. Like I mentioned earlier, sometimes as a creator, you create your own stigmas, right? But then you learn that those stigmas are what makes you different. And as soon as you embrace them, nothing can stop you.
Right.
And one of those stigmas was my voice. Because growing up, everybody always made fun of my voice because it's high pitched, because it's mellowy and all these things.
Sure.
So I was always very conscious about it. And during the time that I was making music video, that's why I would talk about artists and not about me or show my face.
Wow.
I would just do my captions, my edits, and all the things without me being present.
Gotcha.
Once I decided to do QC Javi, I knew that I wanted to be in front of the camera, and then it was all about just me being out there.
Wow.
And I think that's what clicked with a lot of people. And a lot of people, it's funny now, years later, that when I call on the phone, people will recognize me that have never seen me in their lives. I'll call some restaurants and be like, hey, can I make an order? They're like, your voice sounds familiar. Like, are you Javi? And I'm like, yeah. So it's one of those things that when I got over what my voice sounded like, and that people enjoyed it, that's when I became a free creator.
Okay.
And it was one of those things to where it's like, okay, now your focus needs to be creating the next thing, not your stigmas.
Do you think like the self-consciousness, like obviously it's an insecurity thing, right?
Yeah.
Like, that's 100% what it is. I wanted to ask the question somewhere down the line is like how did you become aware of that, and kind of going deeper into that topic? Because you have like the surface level, like, yes, like I felt this, but I think a lot of people, especially like in entrepreneurship, like that's a big thing. It's like you're going down this path, right? And you're doing this thing, it's going good. You're having this lifestyle that's pretty cool that people would kill to have. And then you hit this point and you're sitting to yourself and like, there's something off here. How did you, like, what did you do to kind of reassess that with yourself? Does that make sense?
Yeah. Well, before the cool life was when this transition was happening, right? Now that I'm out there, now the cool life is happening because of making the sacrifices and making the positive transition into saying, hey, I need to find a purpose and I need to stick with it. And then I'll grow my community. At this point, now you were starting to see the YouTubers, the Viners, and all the things that were becoming popular. So now influencer culture was starting to grow when I decided to do it.
Would you say like how far are we? Because like it sounds like you got into the influencer life like as it was starting, like pretty early on.
Yeah. I would say probably like 5 years ago. You know,
years ago, really?
I mean,
that makes sense. That makes sense.
I don't think it's been that long. It just the time just moves so fast that you wouldn't think. But you know, we went through a pandemic. We went through all these things to where by that time the pandemic kind of just boomed the influencer lifestyle. Let's say.
Would you say like it's like not like a movement? I don't want to call it a movement, but like just like I like the idea that you said like it's a boom. But there's all these different people that came up because like you have your your Logan Pauls, your Jake Pauls, your Viners, and different. Like I didn't really start to become aware of that until I got on YouTube as a kid and like watching Call of Duty YouTubes, your Minecraft, your PewDiePies or whatever. But it felt like that level was too far above.
Right.
Now anyone can kind of do it. So I wonder like, was it the pandemic that kind of shifted that thing because everything was online? So shifting the attention online where most people were getting deals and you were making money because of your views or whatever it was, now people kind of got like a taste of that. And now we're here 5 years later after the pandemic. And it's like, where would you say it's at right now?
So what I think is important is to acknowledge that we went from spending our time of consuming television to consuming content on our phones, right? So that I think is when everything transitioned, and then when we had a huge boom. Before the pandemic, I was already creating content about the city. I was already doing really cool things with the Hornets, with different businesses, nonprofits, and stuff like that. Getting exposure to the city because I always felt that Charlotte as a city. The attention from the whole country was never here, right? We had an all-star game in I think 2019. That everything was like very spotty. We would have like one event every 2-3 years. We had NCAA, and it just was never a super like creative hub. It wasn't something that, let's say, catered to everybody. It was always very specific. And I always wanted to create something that I could showcase, which I started wearing like Charlotte shirts. I started going to different places and always representing Charlotte. So there was this Charlotte pride that cleared out my path on who I wanted to be. So when I started doing like restaurant reviews and recaps and all these things, that helped me find a path.
Sure.
Right?
Sure.
What happened during the pandemic is that path was needed more than ever.
That's a good
during
point.
the pandemic.
The demand was high.
So then the need for it, but not just the demand monetarily, let's say.
Okay.
The demand for actually sticking for the community and helping these businesses that were struggling without their marketing. Because remember, they had to shut down and there was no work, there was nothing, they couldn't have food. Then there was a time of transition where they could open, but it was for takeout only.
Bro, that's such a crazy thing to think about. I'm sorry to cut you off, but like, I haven't thought about that in years. And now it's scary that we're getting to the point now where it's like, oh yeah, 5 years ago. But no. It's like, dude, that's half a decade ago that we were going through that. But it makes sense, like kind of like what you're saying, though. It's like the demand, not just for that. It's like that's just what the society. That's just what society.
That's what we needed.
Like, that's what we had, bro. No, that makes total sense. I think your point of the change of where we're at. You know, like it was television. Before that, it was I don't even know, the newspaper.
Before television, the radio, and then before
radio,
that, the
newspaper, telegraph. Like it goes back, and that's my favorite thing to talk about too. It's just like if you want to know what the future is going to be, look at history. Like it's going to happen. Like that's where AI is right now, where people are like, oh, it's going to take over. It's like, yeah, well, people thought farming was done when the tractor was invented. It's like, it's just going to make things better. But
I mean, think about podcasts, right?
Yeah, bro,
just being on a podcast right now, talking about these things.
Yeah.
In the last 3-4 years, everybody's like, podcast is so lame. Like, who wants to do that? And now everybody wants to do a podcast.
Yeah.
Everybody has a story to tell. So that's how you grow community. And that's how I was able to shift my brand per se from helping businesses and community into how Javi is doing it and doing the social work that nobody else is doing. And by showcasing these underexposed businesses, all these businesses that don't have the engagement from the American influencers that don't speak English and all these things. So then that's what shaped me to be a difference maker and then create these beautiful relationships with these businesses that a lot of them I still work with. Yeah. And it's shaped who I am and it shaped my purpose. And that's where that purpose gives me the most fulfillment and allowed me to be able to focus on creating for myself and for the community more than for a music artist, somebody that has no idea of who I am, and I'm wasting all my time, energy, money on something that doesn't fulfill me the same way.
Yeah, I mean the fulfillment thing, that's huge.
It is.
I think that's one of the biggest things that people don't understand. Whether it's in their own lives, whether it's in creator, whether it's in your job, whatever it is, it's like, I mean, that's what got me to quit my job and start this business.
Yeah.
I was like, tried it for a couple of years, working for someone else. It wasn't for me. But now it's like, I go on a shoot, I have a podcast, or, you know, I help someone learn how to appear on camera, whatever it is. And I get this like rush, and it's not for a long time. It's like for like maybe 10, 15 seconds. I'm just like, yeah, this is pretty cool. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's cool to hear your story, bro. Like, I think, you know, switching industries, kind of being here with the creative stuff, and now Charlotte. You know, Charlotte has been, like, a special place for me because, like, my sister came here in 2019, and she was working for the orthodontist I was telling you about. And COVID happened, right? The big boom. All these derail stories. And I actually came down here. This was when I was graduating. Shadowed them. Was doing like retainer stuff. Like it was gonna be retainer tech, and they shut down. I was like, all right, well, don't really know. Met Dr. Sam. Had a cool connection, and then like a couple years went by. Tried working. Didn't really like it. And then I got into drones. So I always used to fly RC helicopters as a kid with my dad. And then during the lockdown, he ordered this $100 drone from Amazon. And I was like, oh, this is cool. Let's fly it, learn how to fly it. And I started doing a series on my Instagram where I just post these videos. And I called it the Ring Doorbell drone because that's how bad the quality was. Like 440p, you could barely hear me, all these different things. But then I realized, oh, okay, I was working roofing at the time. I can make roofing videos. I can stitch this together and maybe use it for work. And that's the spark that got me to Charlotte. So fast forward, I quit the job. Like, well, I got fired, technically speaking. I got fired because I wasn't doing my job right. And I was like, all right, well, I got to find a client. And texted my sister, I was like, yo, can I get Dr. Sam's number? Texted him like 3 a.m, was like, yo, like, if you hop on a call tomorrow, like, I promise, like, I'll change your life or something like that. Sold him. And then that's how I got here. So it took about a year to kind of ramp up and get to Charlotte because it was always it's my first time leaving home. I'm the baby of the family, so like I was like, I don't want to leave my parents, this and that. And then finally August of 2024 was when we made the move. And the last 7 months now have been it's been nuts. Like as soon as the day that I landed in Charlotte literally was going straight to work with a client. And I was just like, this is it. This is my life now, bro.
Yeah.
But to kind of talk about Charlotte for a second, it's like it's a different type of city, and that's why I'm here. I think it's funny because it's Buzz City. There is a buzz to this city, and I mean I've met so many people that are different avenues. So it's interesting to see that earlier you were saying that Charlotte wasn't like this X amount of years ago, and now it is because like I saw it's like the 5th top 5 growing cities or something like that. So what do you think kind of happened? Like how did Charlotte kind of get to this point?
Well, I think there's many avenues that we can kind of picture, right? To start off, the weather. I feel like the weather plays a huge factor because we don't have a super long winter, and we get one snow here, one snow there. So I think unconsciously that's a big hit. Secondly, I think there's been a lot of investment done into the city, not only with the businesses that are here, but just in growing the city as a whole. Obviously, there's a bunch of apartments that are going up. There's sky rises. There's just a lot of movement and a lot of potential for people to fulfill their dreams here.
Yeah,
that allow people to be creative and take the risk.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of risk takers here.
Yeah, that's very true.
And I think that's what's been able to shape and grow Charlotte because just like you coming from another state or another city, you see the potential of you creating a podcast, monetizing it, and getting to work, right? All the people that are here in Charlotte, I think they come here for the opportunities, and they see the potential in being able to stay creative, find something they love, taking a risk, and making a living, like an actual living off of their passions.
Yeah. I mean, that's kind of, you kind of hit the nail on the head right there. Like, that's kind of why. Like, I remember when I'd finally, because we had a 2-story house, and I moved all my stuff from my bedroom downstairs. I was sleeping in our dining room with all my bags, all my stuff kind of around me, and then it finally hit me like 3 days before we moved. I was like, oh, wow, like, this is happening.
Yeah.
Like, I'm going. But I was like, I finally had that conversation with myself. I was like, all right, well, why are we moving? Like, let's be real here. And I was like, well, I feel like, I can see myself growing. Like, I told people, like, the only reason I'm moving is to scale the business. Like, straight up. Like, will Charlotte be home? I don't know. I'm 22. I still have a lot of ways to go. We'll figure out. But just being here, exactly what you said, like, there's more, I feel like there's more opportunity. There's more people to connect with. There's, like-minded people. And that's not to say, like, where I'm from, there's not that. But there's just a different vibe to it. It's like, instead of just going here and staying stuck at this thing, it's like we can go here and some.
Correct.
And that's the mentality I have. It's like I don't like staying stagnant. I want to get to that point and see if we can break that ceiling and how many more we can break after that.
Correct.
And it just clicks. And I don't think that's Charlotte specifically. I just Charlotte specifically for me.
Right.
And I think a lot of people can kind of relate to that. And it's just like it's a fun city too.
Yeah.
Sports teams, Charlotte FC, the Panthers, the Hornets, and Charlotte FC has been fun. I didn't get into it till last year. So in April, we went to our first game and it was like a draw. But just the game itself was fun.
Yeah.
I'm like, all right, I can get into this. And the Saturday we went to the home opener, and bro, that was insane. That was such a vibe. I was like, yeah, let's do this every Saturday.
Exactly.
Let's do it. MLS champions, let's go. You know, and I'm all passionate.
We're going for it. We're going for it.
You think this year we can do it?
I think there's a big push to want to get something.
Yeah.
There's during the whole MLS season, there's smaller cups like the Leagues Cup and the U.S. Open Cup, right?
Yeah.
Small little tournaments that happen, and I think there's a chance that we can get something to be able to crown ourselves. The MLS champion, I think it's still a few years before we can reach that point, but we're making the right moves to happen.
Yeah.
But you never know. You never know. I'm hopeful. Last year we ended in the ranking. We ended 5th place. We went into the playoffs. We got knocked out first round due to a unfortunate game in Orlando that I traveled to, and I almost cried at the end of last season just because of the way we went out.
That's rough.
But it is what it is. We've made right moves. We're going. We got Saha.
Yeah,
so
that's
that's just going to be really good. Hopefully we end up just higher than we did last year, right? And continue to show improvement. So it's coming. It's coming. I know it's definitely something that the team wants to do.
Yeah.
The fans want it more than anybody. So it's just a matter of time, whether it's this year or next year. But we're going in the right path for sure.
Yeah, that's exciting. How did you kind of get involved with Charlotte FC? That's the question I've been wanting to ask.
So I was born in Mexico.
Okay.
And in particular, a city called Guadalajara in the state of Jalisco.
Okay.
Where Chivas is the team, right? And Mexico has 2 really big soccer team, which is Chivas America. Me growing up, there was always the biggest rivalry going back to the 60s, 70s, to where when I was born and all that, my whole family was Chivas. So when I came to the U.S. when I was 10 years old, there was always that gap of being able to cheer on somebody, right? I love sports. I always played sports all through high school, all through I started to in college, but then I didn't finish. So then that went away. But throughout my childhood, sports were a huge thing. And I just didn't have that here in Charlotte. And remember how I was discovering myself with music and all these things. Even though I was a Charlotte Hornets fan, because the Hornets had already been around, during the path that I was going through my sports search, there was never anything that really enticed me like Chivas did, right?
Yeah,
Back at home, my childhood, that nostalgia. Like, I never had anything. So the city of Charlotte started hosting some Mexico national team games here at Bank of America, and they would always sell out. So something that, even though I already love soccer, I loved going to live sporting events, so that when that happened, I felt like I was connecting with my culture, with a sport, and I just felt that need that Charlotte needed to get a soccer team. So when the Mexico games were happening, I was already making content. So there was a campaign back in probably 2016, 2017, that I think was MLS for CLT, because the city has always wanted a soccer team. Soccer team, as the MLS was growing, they always pitched the idea to the city to get a soccer team. But until David Tepper with his money bags came, he was like, okay, we're not going to do it with city funding completely. I'll fund it. It'll be my team, just like the Panthers, and then we'll make it happen. So we got our bid, we got our team, and then I just started making content about it because it was the connection in that team that I had been craving for years, right? 15, 20 years since I got here to Charlotte. So I just went hard at showcasing and informing the community of how Charlotte was here. And how we were getting a team. So then they started to reach out to me.
No kidding.
And to begin with, we did a campaign where before they announced the name, they announced the crest and the colors of the team. They reached out to me and they're like, hey, we're going to make these coins that we're going to do a giveaway. Our first season is going to be in 2022. There's 2022 coins, limited edition coins, and we want you to give away 22 of them to the community, to people that participate. And I remember that Jonathan Stewart, the Panthers player, did it as well, and some other like running influencer. Well, or it wasn't an influencer. It was an athlete that had a good following. So they put the three of us to make this announcement to do the giveaway.
That's pretty sweet.
And mine had the most engagement out of these other three big, massive following.
Yeah.
And that's when I felt that my calling was to be able to connect the team to the community.
Nice.
And that just went hard.
Yeah.
Any news, anything that was happening related to Charlotte FC, I was at that point, because my brand was already my face.
Mm-hmm.
I put my face in front of anything related to Charlotte FC, which brought opportunities not only directly from the team, but from their sponsors, like Ally, like Adidas, like Compare Foods, and just all the things just started happening because I was showcasing how fun soccer games were, and the community just started growing.
Yeah.
And that's just kind of how it happened. I mean, I don't know what else I can say.
Well, it's cool. Like, I've always, wondered that because I'm a huge Panthers fan, and like the dream would be like shoot content for the Panthers. Like I love their social media team. I'm like, they're doing it very, very good. And same with the Charlotte FC social. I'm sure they're connected, of course.
Yeah.
But I've met a couple
They're the
of people.
best.
They are really good. They're really what they're the what's it called? The video that they just put out with Zaha getting the license plate from the RC. I was going through the comments and someone said at Charlotte FC like, what does one have to do to get the RC license? And it was like literally 3 seconds of training and a prayer. So I'm like, yes, like that's how you respond to people,
everything that they've been posting this season is so comical and so good.
That's how you do it. But like it was funny. Like I tried to get involved. Like I sent like an application or whatever like that. Never heard anything back.
Yeah,
it's all right. But I think I'm trying to break. Cause I'm starting to get into real estate right now. So I'm doing videos and pictures and different things. It's a new venture I'm kind of starting within the company. But down the line, I would love to get into sports, kind of figure out what that looks like. So I'm like starting to just understand the industry.
Yeah.
But nowhere to the extent of just like where other people are right now. But like, one of the dreams is get on the field, shoot some content, whether it's like of people who are doing media already, but just like being in the atmosphere of that. I think that would be the move. It's something I want to do.
So the first step is definitely to be involved. But one thing that I'll tell you is that, again, the city is growing so much and the sport itself is growing so much that you have the freedom to choose to be part of the team directly and rely on them to give you a job, or for you to create your own platform, create the following, and then now you work for the brands that work with the team, and then that still gives you creative freedom.
Gotcha.
Your freedom of time, and then you still reap the benefit of living off of the work that you're doing without having to clock in and doing the thing. You know? It all depends because everybody's journey is different. Because I wanted to be that employee too. I wanted to be that face directly with the team. But after some years and hard work and all these things, I've realized that having the freedom to create as I do and having the connection with the team is something that if I was employed by the team, maybe I wouldn't have.
Yeah, you kind of lose that that fire a little bit because it's a job now.
Right.
So you're not doing it because you want to do it.
And not just that. At that point, when you're an employee of the team, you can't be the face.
Right.
Because now now they
are the face,
like you can't be more important than the players that are on the field doing the playing, right? So those are just things that I've learned, maybe the hard way.
Yeah.
But I've been able to embrace it, and that's what keeps me continuing to grow my community. Again, I've been able to find partners that allow me to do really, really cool things related to the team. With Compare Foods, I mean, being able to give away jerseys, tickets, and all these things and still have the freedom because it's a Latin supermarket. It goes directly into the Latino community, which, again, I try to showcase with everything that I do. Still get access to all the benefits of Charlotte FC by going to the games, going on the field, meeting players and all these things. And it's just really easygoing to do it this way that I wouldn't be able to do if I was directly with the team.
Yeah, well, no, that's definitely a good insight because that's definitely a route I want to take. I don't want to work for anyone. I'm there, whatever that looks like. I have a lot of ideas, and it's hard to stay focused on certain ones. So, I mean, I've been doing dental marketing for the last 2.5 years.
Okay.
And now I'm finally kind of, I have that pin. It's there. It's feeding the flame, and we're doing good there. So now I'm kind of starting this real estate venture. I'm not restarting. It's just an extension of what I was doing with dental.
Correct.
And I'm just gonna see if I can monetize that and get some more income in the company, and then kind of do the sports marketing next. Is where I want to go, because I'm not necessarily trying to make money with the sports marketing. It really is the creative aspect. It's where I think I can see myself doing it, whether it's shooting players, whatever. I don't know. I haven't thought too far into it, but it's definitely like every time I'm at the game, I'm like, dang, it would be cool to be on the field.
Correct.
Recording that pass, recording that this, that, or whatever.
Well, again, the content creation team for Charlotte FC is just so good.
It is so good
that you just envision yourself wanting to be part of that, right? It's like if you create content, you want to be with the cool kids, which again, Charlotte FC and the Panthers, they make engaging, entertaining content that isn't corny.
Agreed.
And they, like this year with the tweets and just everything that they've been doing, well, the X's, I don't know, what are X tweets called?
You know what's funny? I was just watching the Joe Rogan Elon Musk podcast that just dropped, and Joe Rogan asked him, he's like, do we call them tweets anymore? He's like, it's just a post. So it's just a post. That's what he calls
post.
It. Yeah. You don't even say X, I guess. It's just like, it's a post. I don't know.
Okay, I guess.
I don't know. That's coming from the man himself.
Yeah.
So, I don't know.
Okay.
I'm kidding. I'm messing with you.
So they're just so good, and they're so engaged.
Yeah.
Now, they've built such a good culture, I'm sure, within the social marketing team that they're just solid. Yeah. One after another after another. And right now, they are posting probably like 6-7 times a day.
Yeah, that's
I don't even understand. It's just so
that's
good.
The way to do it,
and
bro.
they have so many people that are just so good at it that, again, sometimes you think like, shit, I want to be part of the cool kids too.
Yeah.
But you could do the same from outside. It's a matter of relating yourself with other people that are already involved, having the conversations, and then setting up your mind on what you want to do, right? So if you just want to go one time on the field, you just make the right contact, the right connection, and then they'll let you on the field. So obviously they'll want to see your work, which you have really good work. So I doubt that.
I appreciate that.
You just the one thing I'd recommend is that when you're there, you just need to take advantage of it as much as you can, because it's not just about being in the field. It's about actually being proactive while you're on the field and working.
Right. Yeah. And that's like the fun thing too, is like I always envision myself doing that. Whether it's never really been with the team itself, but just kind of in that realm. Like I know not everyone who's on the field doing media works for the team. You know what I'm saying? So it's like trying to find my way there and like envisioning like, okay, like where would I post myself? Like I don't know the ins and outs of where they put media here, but I saw like everyone grouped together when Dave Canales was crowned. I'm like, that'd be sweet. Like where would I be in that? And that's just how my brain thinks. So I don't know. I think it's in the horizon. I think it's somewhere.
Yeah, it can happen. And I mean off the podcast we can definitely talk about it. But I think something that you mentioned makes me be where I am.
What's
because you mentioned that everybody was crowding Dave Canales when he showed up, and everybody's doing this thing. So that to me means everybody's getting the same shot.
Yeah.
There's nothing creative. Right. So even though I have media access, I am never down there. I'm always with the fans.
That's pretty sick.
So where the big throne and everything is, you'll see me. A lot of the times I'll get on everybody's shot because I'll be with the fans when they're doing that crowning or that anything.
Yeah, it's lit.
And then I'll be getting my point of view, which creatively it makes it different. But then at the same time, it's like, no, I'm getting the full feeling of what the supporter section is doing.
Exactly. Yeah, I was gonna say like they get the same vibe. Like what did I see? They posted the Peppas this past one, and like when you're obviously in the stadium, you're going through it, you're like, oh, I missed that feeling, and you see it, and you're like, yeah, that was pretty cool.
Yeah. I have some really cool videos of. So the whole celebration's called the Poznan. They use Pepas as the song for it, but you know how they tie hands and they jump and all that? It's called the Poznan. Oh, okay. So then at that point, that is always the point where the fans just unite before the game starts.
So fire,
and it's the best tradition that any sports team in Charlotte has.
Yeah.
And I think it'll always be there just because of the way it unites all the fans.
Everyone was tripping because they didn't play like right away.
Mm-hmm.
So we had like already like locked up, and like everyone was like, "Oh, they're gonna play it? What if they don't play it? Like, what are we gonna do?" And like everyone's freaking out. And I was like, I think they're gonna play. I don't think they would not play. That would be wild.
I think they were setting everybody up so that everybody could start jumping at the same time.
Yeah,
because sometimes it comes unexpectedly, and then people like start freaking out. They're like, "Oh no, I don't know. I'm not
jumping on each
I'm
other
not locked in or anything like that." So I think this time they played it correctly. Like, hey, we'll give it a little bit of time before kickoff, and then boom, we'll go. And man, the videos and the content that have come from that have just been so epic that. Man, I just love Charlotte FC and everything they do.
It's a good vibe, and I think someone put it to me nicely. I think it was my buddy Paul. He was like, it's literally 90 minutes. You can get there like right before. You don't have to tailgate and all that. You can get there, and then still have time. Like I think the kickoff was at 2. It ended at like 5 or something like that. You still have the whole day pretty much. I'm like, it's different. The Panthers game, 4 hours. Like 1 to 4. You're tired. Everyone's like, because it's long. I'm a huge football fan. Like, love NFL, love the Panthers. But the games are so different.
Correct.
It's such a different vibe there. But, no, that's what's up. We'll probably wrap it up here. We've been talking for an hour. 5 minutes, so some decent stuff.
We covered a lot of stuff.
Oh, I know. we kind of winning. It's definitely been good, bro. So
cool. Thank you.
Appreciate you coming on and giving us your time. I think it's a fun thing to get to know someone on a podcast, and then maybe down the line we do another one. We dive into a couple topics. Like I don't know.
Correct.
Kind of figure it out. But, anyways, is there anything you want to kind of say to the people,
to the people on the other side of the camera? Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of hard work that goes into content creation. There's a lot of work that goes into becoming an overnight success, like I mentioned in the podcast earlier. And the one advice that I'd say to people is to find a purpose, and then everything will fall under that. I think my Latino community here in Charlotte and all over the country is very misrepresented. So me wanting to create that difference really empowered other people to create content. It empowered me to be consistent with my content, and it's allowed me to be able to help businesses grow and just be better. So find a purpose, work hard, help your community, no matter what it is, and the reward will always get to you and come back.
Boom. Wise words from the QC Javi. All right, guys, take it easy.